Hello and welcome to Host Planet Bite Size, the podcast brought to you by Host Planet and Hostfully. My name's James Farley, the founder of Host Planet, and our goal is to share everything you need to know about buying and managing short-term rentals. Today's guest is Jay Ulrich from HostBuddy AI, and he's got 5 tips to share about automating your guest messages. Okay, real talk now for all you hosts out there. You know that moment when your guest messages you again with, "Hey, what's the Wi-Fi code?" Or you're staring at 5 different calendars, wondering if you've accidentally double booked the cottage. Yes, we've all been there. That's why here at Host Planet, we recommend Hostfully. It's basically your rentals control center. It handles bookings across all the big platforms, syncs your calendars to ensure there are no double bookings, automates guest messages, and even creates these really slick digital guidebooks that stop all the repeat questions. Honestly, it just makes your life easier and keeps your guests happier, helping you achieve those all-important 5-star reviews. And here is a little bonus. If you're a Host Planet listener, you can get $500 off onboarding for Hostfully's property management software and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. Just hit the link in the show notes and use the codes PLANET500 for the PMS and HostPlanetGB for the guidebooks. And if you'd like a proper walkthrough, there's also a link to book a demo with Frank Bosey from Hostfully. He will show you how it all works. Less stress, more bookings, sorted with Hostfully. Jay, thank you for joining us on Host Planet Bite Size. You've got 5 automated messaging tips to share. So take it away with tip number 1.
Yes, thanks, James. Appreciate you having me. First one that I'm going to start us off with is to create touch points with your guests. So this is going to be really important. I know this firsthand as being a property manager. I manage around 45 units in San Diego, and I started back in 2021. So a lot of this is coming from personal experience, but the touch points are really helpful to just check in with your guests when they show up at your property, midway through your stay, if it's more than a couple nights stay. And then even after a guest checks out, it's really nice, prompting them to give you a positive review and things like that. And I've also noticed from the guest perspective when I stay at properties, if I feel like I get one message right when I book and then nothing else the entire way through, the stay could be great, but I feel like I wasn't really involved. The host wasn't necessarily there for me the entire time. So I found that to be really, really important for making sure that you secure those 5-star reviews.
Yeah, I think that is integral, really, isn't it? So optimum for you then is obviously they get the message when they book, then before, during, and after. So it's 4 main touch points, really.
Yeah, and you can set these up to be just, standard template of messages, either through your OTA, Airbnb, Vrbo, or you can set them up through your PMS. And now there's AI tools that also plug into your PMS that can do that for you as well.
Very simple. Go ahead and do it, people. Okay, tip number 2, Jay.
Tip number 2 is stop sending messages to the wrong guests at the wrong time. I think this is something that we end up doing because we set up these automated messages and then just forget that each conversation is kind of like a unique thing. So there's sometimes, the guest sentiment is going to be negative and you're still going to send them a message saying, "Hey, I hope you settled in all right," even though you've already had a conversation with them where they reported all these issues beforehand and they're not having a good stay. So whether that's you making sure that you're going into your system that has the automated messages setting up and just skipping those messages, making sure they don't go out, or that's you automating that process using AI or some other system, I think it's really important just to make sure that it doesn't feel like you're just having this standard protocol with every single guest. Because when they receive that message, it's really you didn't think that I was going to realize this was just a normal standard message. The whole idea with those follow-up automated messages is to create those personal touch points with your guests. So if you're sending guest messages with the wrong context, it just doesn't come off super professional. So there's AI tools that do that for you now too, which is really great. And you can actually check the context with AI to make sure that those messages don't go out. But I find that that's also really important just to make sure you're maintaining that personal touch.
And will an AI tool pick up on that automatically? Say if the guest has been in touch and said, "Hey, I can't get in," or they see that they've had a bad experience, they'll hold off sending the next messages. Can you train the AI to kind of do that?
Yeah. So with HostBuddy specifically, it's a context checking feature. So if it's not relevant, it's just going to hold off sending it, which is really nice. It's going to read the entire conversation and make sure that you're not sending out messages that don't make sense.
Excellent. Okay, then tip number 3.
Tip number 3 is, drumroll, automate gap night upsells. And this is a little bit of an automated messaging process, but it's also just a revenue maximization strategy. And this can be done through automated messaging, which is why I have it in this list. And it's become really important for a lot of hosts nowadays and in competitive markets to make sure that they're maximizing their revenue. So to give this a little bit more clarity, when you have a minimum night stay, say of 2 nights, 3 nights, you're going to have 2 reservations sitting on either side of a gap night. You can't fill that night. People call them orphan nights, gap nights, whatever you want. But if you're not doing anything about it, that night's just going to go unbooked. And you'd be surprised how many guests would accept an extension request. If you said, hey, we have a night that opened up right after your stay. You want to stay an extra night and maybe we'll give you a discount to fill it. And a lot of times, even if they're not able to actually accept that, let's say they have a flight already planned and they have to go and unfortunately they can't stay, at least they're very appreciative that you even like recommended that or offered it. And what I do with my property management company is we'll offer either extension to their stay or a late checkout at a fee, because we know that there's not going to be a booking that night when they check out. And same thing for check-in. We could say, hey, there's a night that opened up right before your reservation if you want to come early, or you can check in early at a discount. So, I mean, I see hosts that make thousands of extra dollars per property per month on that, just by filling those gap nights. And that can be done now automatically through a lot of AI systems, and they're typically called gap night upsells.
Yeah, it's just about being proactive, isn't it? And talking to the guests and telling them that it's available. And I think, I've done it myself, and you'll be surprised at the amount of times people say, do you know what? Yeah, we'll come for an extra night, or we'll stay an extra night. If they can be flexible, they will do it. Okay, then 3 tips down. Number 4, Jay.
Number 4, we got, don't use AI that doesn't sound like you. And I think this is probably the most important one and my favorite, just because there's a lot of AI out there. And when you consider all the options that you have as a host, sometimes you might think like, oh, as long as I'm using AI, it's going to benefit me. But not all AI is created equal. And I'm finding that more and more every day. There's a lot of AI embedded in some of the systems that you already use. But there's a lot of AI softwares out there now that are created specifically for hosts in order to sound like a host and use all of the right context, read the past conversations, mirror your tone. So if you're not using tools like that and you're just using, even if you're just plugging in your conversations into ChatGPT, it's usually not going to understand enough context, and it's not going to understand like your brand voice and your tone and all of that in order to make sure that you're providing a personal experience to your guests and a consistent experience to your guests. So I think that's a fault that a lot of people see, and AI is a buzzword right now. So everyone's really talking about it. So I know it's difficult and there's a lot of options out there. So, I think it's really important to make sure that whatever AI tools you're using really reflect your own voice, because ultimately you don't want to use AI if it's not going to be an extension of you. So I think there are a lot of really great tools right now that are out there that are going to automate that guest communication process. But I will say I've seen a lot of property management systems implement AI, and what they've done there is on the much more surface level side. Like you can, generate responses into the text field in the conversation, edit it however you feel needs to be done. But I will say when those features started to come out, I noticed, because our virtual assistants started to use them, but I didn't really realize. I was looking through the conversation. I was like, that doesn't sound like us. That's kind of strange. And they're like, oh yeah, there's this cool new AI feature in the inbox. And I was like, let's take a look at that. So we started kind of playing around with it, and we just determined it wasn't quite there yet. So if you're going to be automating AI or automating your guest communication with AI, I would make sure that you're using a tool that's going to reflect your voice properly.
And how can you make sure that a tool is going to reflect your voice and brand? Is it simply a case of using it so the tool gets used to you?
Yeah, and I think it depends on which tool it is. A lot of tools now, you can get a free trial and test it out, and really make sure that it's not making things up, that it's going to sound like you. And it's kind of like that qualitative factor where like the measurement it's kind of difficult because it's not like, you can measure it hit the mark every single time. It's just a feeling, of like, does this sound like me? Is it something I would have said? Is it using the right context? Is it using the right background and information? So I think the right AIs right now in the space are gathering as much data as possible and using it to their advantage. And so those are going to be the ones that are the best, in my opinion.
Like anything else in business, really, but certainly in short-term rentals, it has to fit your tone of voice and your brand. Okay, then, Jay, fifth and final tip.
Fifth and final tip, I would say if you're going to automate guest messaging with AI specifically, use SOPs and digital guidebooks. And, this kind of goes along with the idea of adding as much data as possible. There could be a misconception out there that if you use AI, like I said before, if I plug in AI for my business for guest communications, it's going to do a great job because everyone's saying that it can do all these amazing things, but it's only as good as the information that you provide it. So if you have a property management business, or if you're a host, let's say with just one or two properties, it's always good to have SOPs, standard operating procedures for your business. So this is like exactly the same way that you train an employee. You should be thinking about it the same way if you're training an AI, because it needs to know, what do I do in these certain situations? What happens when a guest shows up and the unit's dirty? How do I deal with an early check-in request or a bag drop-off request or, a cleanliness issue? So there's all these different things where, like, if you had just hired a new employee today and you said, okay, here we go, like, go ahead and manage my business, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. And so you should look at AI the same way. Because, if you give it the right instructions, it's absolutely amazing. It's going to follow it to a T. It's going to fill in the blanks when it needs to. It's going to troubleshoot. And there's a lot of really good things out there that it can do when it has the resources to do so. So I recommend SOPs. I recommend digital guidebooks. There's a lot of good ones out there that you can get. My business, we started back in 2021, and we just created a guidebook on our website. So each property has its own sub URL that just links straight to our website, and they pull it up. If that's how you want to do it, that's great. If you want to use something like TouchStay or a different digital guidebook, that's also great too. But being able to pull that information in and input it into the AI is also really important, so that your team is going to use the information from the digital guidebook as much as your guests do, and to be able to recommend that consistent level of information is really important. So those two things, SOPs and digital guidebooks, are like huge necessities when you're going to be using AI.
Yeah, and look, these models, they rely on data, and I guess that's one of the challenges with property managers. You need to find out everything you possibly can about a property in order to reply to guests effectively. But it's getting that information, isn't it? Sometimes you need to go direct to the source, which might be the property manager. All the info might not be on a website, for example, about how to use the dishwasher or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so many different sources that you could use too. Like I've seen people just write up documents. Like, SOPs don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to have super like organized everything. It's AI is going to use natural language processing. It's going to understand. If you just write something out, just write like a whole page of just like situational things that you can deal with, and it can follow. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you got to start somewhere, and just make sure you're including information.
And if you need a digital guidebook, you might have heard our advert at the start of the show, 30% off digital guidebooks for life with Hostfully. So that offer is in the show notes, and there's a link there. You can go and grab one. So take a look at that. Okay, Jay, 5 fantastic tips there. Just tell us a bit more about HostBuddy and where people can find more information.
Yeah, would love to. So HostBuddy plugs into the property management system. So you may have been wondering over these tips, how does that fit into the equation? If you use a property management system, it's a really great tool because it's going to plug straight in. It's going to pull all of your property details, all of your guest conversations, your availability, your pricing, everything like that. And then it's going to be able to respond to your guests automatically using AI for any conversation, whether it's coming from Airbnb or Vrbo or direct booking. If it's going through the PMS, it can be responded to, and all those things that I mentioned about pulling in all the data and being able to, plug in different data sources is all available within HostBuddy. So you can connect your digital guidebooks. And cool quick mention too with Hostfully digital guidebooks, we just finished up an integration with them. So you can connect your digital guidebook directly from Hostfully. It's going to pull in all that data dynamically, and then obviously upload any other documents you like. It's going to sound like you, mirror your tone, do all that great stuff, and do the gap night upsells and a lot of things that I mentioned today. So it really sits on top of the PMS, and we're finding hosts are automating their guest communications by over 90% of messages. So I started that business back in 2023 to automate my own property management business, and now selling it to the rest of the hosting community. So excited to be here. You can find me on all the socials, but my name is Jay. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's just jay@hostbuddy.ai. HostBuddy.ai is our website. And feel free to go to our website too. We have a nice tool on there where you can play around with the AI, act as a guest, and talk to it with a bunch of random guest questions, which is a good thing to point out. You asked, how can you know that these AI tools are sounding like you or sounding like a host? And that's a good way where we put our public facing AI just out on our front pages for people to use. So if you are curious, head over to hostbuddy.ai. It's always fun to just see how it's going to respond. And we always give a 2-week free trial to anyone who starts a subscription as well. So
fantastic. Check it out. And how much does it cost if people want to sign up?
Yeah, it's between $6 and $10 per property per month, depending on your property count.
Fantastic. Okay, check it out. HostBuddy.ai. Go have a play with that tool and check it out. Jay, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us on Host Planet Bite Size.
Thank you so much, James. Appreciate it.
Great to chat to Jay Ulrich there about automated messaging. I hope you found those tips useful. All right, that's it for today's episode. Remember, this podcast is brought to you in collaboration with Hostfully, which is trusted by short-term rental professionals across the globe. As a Host Planet listener, you get 2 exclusive offers: $500 off onboarding for Hostfully's property management software. Just use the code PLANET500, and 30% off digital guidebooks for life. Use the code HostPlanetGB. To grab these deals, click the link in the show notes or head to hostfully.com. For more free education, tips and trends from the STR industry, visit houseplanet.club, where you can sign up for our newsletter, listen to our podcasts, and download a suite of ebooks for hosts and property managers. That's it for today's episode. Until next time, happy hosting.